We got some breaking news on a remarkable trade that should, one, significantly improve the New York Knicks while giving them a young piece that they could build around for the future, two, gets rid of a player that they did not like whatsoever, and three, reunites two teammates in an extremely hyped up Duke basketball team from 3 years ago. So before we get to the content, today on my Instagram page, I'm giving away a follower $500 on my Instagram. All you have to do is be following. We're also giving away a subscriber that turns on our notifications, $500 on this channel as well. And probably most importantly, my podcast with Mike Korzemba and Get Like Coop, the Laced Up podcast, is going to 2 episodes a week starting from next week. Make sure you subscribe over there or check us out on Spotify and Apple. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. All agree on one thing, and that's that traditional banks stink. They charge $35 in overdraft fees. They charge you fees for having a checking and a savings account. They don't give cash back on debit card purchases. Their apps are slow and clunky to use. They send you alerts in the mail, and they put you on hold for hours to talk to a human being, which is why I recommend Albert. Albert is completely different from any bank account that you've ever used. They are free to sign up with and super easy to use. Instead of just opening a traditional savings account and hoping that you put money into it, Albert looks at your income and expenses and sees what kind of money you can save. They will automatically move money into your savings account even if it's a few dollars at a time. Albert never charges overdraft fees ever. As a matter of fact, instead they'll spot you up to $250 whenever you need it. But most importantly, for me, you guys all know I'm a freaking dumbass, especially when it comes to managing my money, which is why Albert has something called Genius, which is a team of financial experts that will look at your situation, help you make a plan, and help you out whenever you get stuck. So click the link in the description box to download Albert today. And for a limited time, go to albert.com/TFM, and when you submit a qualifying direct deposit, you will get a free $150. Or you can just go to albert.com/TFM. To open up your checking account, submit a qualifying direct deposit, and make yourself a free $150. And thank you, Albert, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, about 5 months ago, I made a video that kind of caused a stir with most of my subscribers on my YouTube channel. It's not very often that after the most successful season that a team has had in about 3 or 4 years, credit to the Hawks for the quick rebuild that they were able to undergo, that the owner will come out and say, yeah, this is great, but we're not going to be able to keep everybody. And literally 5 months ago, that's what our video was about. In this article from The Athletic, credit to Chris Kirschner for the article, the general manager would say that building out a roster is hard, and it's certainly not a bad problem to have numerous talented young players whom you'd like to keep moving forward. But there's the salary cap that's the issue. The Hawks will likely be an over-the-cap team for the foreseeable future because of all the rookie-scale contracts expiring soon, which means large contracts are going to fill out the roster. Now, Atlanta could re-sign all of its draft picks and go into the tax, but the front office has to decide who is and who isn't worth keeping long term. That's just the general summary of the situation. This is what the owner had to say at the time. It's complicated, of course, because what we're trying to convince people is we're building something. But let's not kid ourselves. Our job is to run a good business. What we are trying to achieve is literally keeping our best players. As you can imagine, trying to make clear that we're going to have to spend a lot more than we have this season. We fully expect that. I'm not sure we're going to be able to keep every single player that we want to keep. Pretty good bet, pretty good assumption that we will not. But I do think we have several years that we should be able to build some real stability. If the question is, are we scared of the tax? Are we scared of going into the tax? I'm scared of paying the tax and not being a good team. Yes, that I'm scared of. But if we have to go into the tax to be a great team for a period of time, so be it. Which is very normal, man, because you don't want to be in a situation like Dan Gilbert was during the tail end of LeBron James's second tenure when he was paying the luxury tax consistently, but his team wasn't a good team. Or this year's Los Angeles Lakers. For a team that is 500 and has won 21 games and lost 21 games, they have a luxury tax bill of $46.3 million for a team that is just, with all due respect, and I'm a Laker fan, not good. Now, ultimately, as time would go on, Chris Kirschner would give us an update literally 5 hours ago. But initially, Chris Kirschner thought that Cam Reddish would eventually be part of a Ben Simmons trade, stating that if the Atlanta Hawks don't trade for Ben Simmons, Detroit's Jeremy Grant is available and could be had for a much lesser price. I'm thinking Cam Reddish, Danilo Gallinari, and possibly a pick or two for Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant isn't as talented as Ben Simmons, but he's a good scorer on the wing and defends well. The one thing that might give the Hawks a pause in trading for him is the question of whether he's someone they'd be okay going into the tax for. I don't know the answer for that. Whereas Ben Simmons is the quality of player a team shouldn't have any pause in going into the luxury tax for. The ironic part is, next he was asked, what do you think the likeliness of Cam Reddish being traded is percentage-wise? And the answer was, from what I've heard from sources, it would be a surprise if Reddish is still with the Atlanta Hawks past the trade deadline. If he doesn't get traded before the trade deadline, I still do not see a long-term future for him in Atlanta. I agree with your assessment that he and Gallinari are the two most likeliest players to be traded. When an insider's correct, you got to give him his props. He was absolutely right, because in this situation, Cam Reddish, who, by the way, very talented player, has shown spurts of greatness. He has the skills that many NBA teams covet. As a matter of fact, if you look at his stats so far this year, he's averaging 38% shooting from 3, 12 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, 40% shooting, which isn't necessarily the greatest, but he's only 22 years old, and there's definitely a foundation that you could build upon. And ultimately, that was enough for the New York Knicks to say, okay, we'll bite, because according to Adrian Wojnarowski, who, by the way, is absolutely going on a tear today. This is going to be one of two videos. I don't know if this is going to be our second video or our first video, but ESPN sources suggest that the Atlanta Hawks are trading forward Cam Reddish to the New York Knicks for a deal that includes a protected 2022 first-round pick via Charlotte. The Knicks also acquire Solomon Hill and a 2025 second-round pick via Brooklyn in the trade. Now, Atlanta has been canvassing the league for a mid-round pick or a young player in a Reddish deal. Now, here's the funny thing. This isn't the only part of the trade, because Woj would then go on to say that New York is also including Kevin Knox in the trade to Atlanta. So overall, all the New York Knicks had to do to get Cam Reddish was give up a protected first-round pick, Solomon Hill, and Kevin Knox in a 2025 second-round pick that was Brooklyn's, to get Cam Reddish paired up with RJ Barrett once again. At the very worst, man, you get two buddies in college that really were good friends teaming up with each other once again. I'm actually quite a believer in Tom Thibodeau when it comes to developing players, so I personally really like this. But Woj continues to say that Atlanta had been canvassing the league for a mid-first round pick or a young player in a Reddish deal. Hawks had discussed variations of trade with Knicks, but landed on the Charlotte's first-round pick. The Pacers and Lakers were also amongst teams who had discussed Reddish scenarios with the Hawks lately as well. Reddish gets his wish for a deal to a team with the ability to give him an increased role and an extension this summer. And the Hawks get a first-round pick that could be useful in more deal-making to improve the roster. So if you're a Hawks fan that might be a little disappointed by this, you really didn't have a choice in this scenario, because Cam Reddish was probably going to get a huge contract when he entered restricted free agency, and chances are, no matter how good Cam Reddish really is, you weren't going to max a huge contract offer for Cam Reddish, which could always happen. I've seen this happen over and over again, teams overpaying for potential as opposed to the actual production of the player, and in Cam Reddish's case, there's been occasional spurts in his performance, including his final game in the NBA playoffs versus the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, where he went for 21 points off of 58% shooting and 6 of 7 from 3. What I'm saying is the potential is there, and he's a very young player, so it makes a lot of sense if you're the Atlanta Hawks to trade Cam Reddish. It seems like the Atlanta Hawks want to move forward with DeAndre Hunter, which makes a lot of sense because DeAndre Hunter seems to be a little bit more promising than Cam Reddish. He's shooting an insane 43% from 3 so far this year. He's averaging very similar numbers as well. But in the New York Knicks case, this is all about getting a player that fits into their timeline, their rebuilding timeline, that also gets along with a player that is considered to be a franchise cornerstone, RJ Barrett, fits in with their developmental timeline, and to be honest, you really didn't need to give up much in order to get him. Kevin Knox wasn't a player that New York Knicks fans liked at all. Now, I know Knicks fans are saying, okay, all all we need is Zion Williamson to complete the set from the Duke trio. We're gonna keep our eyes out on that because the Zion Williamson situation has been very strange. I haven't made a video on it in quite some time, mainly because, dude, it's getting pretty repetitive in my opinion. But if you guys really want that, I'll get you an update on that. Do me a favor, grade this trade in the comment section down below. For the New York Knicks, they obviously get an A+. This is a remarkable risk to take for a very high value player. And for the Atlanta Hawks, I also give them an A+. It's not really the most ideal trade that you would make for your team, but you really don't have a choice. Your hand was kind of forced. You had an embarrassment of young riches on rookie scale contracts, and this is what you're supposed to do when you can't afford to keep everyone and you don't think it's worth keeping everyone. The Atlanta Hawks also get an asset back in return so they can continue building their team and potentially add some role players moving forward. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.